Welcome to Main Street Minds with your host, Amish Munshi. This is where industry leaders and seasoned pros share their secrets to success beyond limits. Let's dive in.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for coming to Main Street Minds. It's great to have you over here. As you know, we love to have high successful people in the tech industry and get to cross network with other people. So, without any delay, let me get started, and you can introduce yourself.
Great, thanks. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate it. My name is Michael Kolbrener. I live in Brooklyn, New York. I have been in financial services technology for most of my career, almost 25 years. I've worked in a lot of different areas. So I started in local banks, and then I worked in a large investment bank. Then I worked for a global consulting company. I ran a startup for 5 years. And then I ran a big team at Bank of America where I led the consumer lending tech division. And since that time, I've pivoted to be a fractional chief technology officer in my business, Architectero. And at Architectero, we try to help companies that are startups, mid-market, with their technology strategy, solve their pain points, or introduce new innovation for them.
Sweet. That is an extremely impressive career, and obviously it's still in progress, right? So,
Yeah.
what got you started in doing tech?
It's a great question. I started in the mid 90s. I had a job working at a law firm right out of college, and I started helping them adopt technology. And I always said the 90s was about connectivity. It was about email and connecting to the internet. It was local area networks and connecting more broadly and sharing information. And it was an exciting time. And obviously, there was a lot of work, in building um, consumer websites or news sites or blogs, and I got a little bit involved in that also in the late 90s. But I realized that the one thing that I really liked doing was being close to the technology and helping take an idea from the idea stage to delivery and helping companies really either create efficiency or grow their revenue using technology.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, I know technology generally starts off as saying let's use it for uh, improving something, and the next thing we realize is it's just becomes such an integral part of the business, right? And have you seen any issues with like technologies, like a business starts to buy different technologies, and then they have issues with just getting all that to speak with each other. Like over the
Yeah.
years or over the decades, have you seen a kind of a transition? Like as an example, like I think 5 to 10 years ago, it was all about like cloud computing, mobile computing. Like maybe 10 years ago was more like mobile. Everyone moving into the cloud and then realizing how do we get these systems to speak with each other? And prior to that, it probably was more like, oh, we got all these technologies, but everything is a silo, right? Like because of the great experience you have you seen a trend? Like what was 90s, what was 2000s, what was 20?
Yeah. Yeah, so like I said, the 90s were about connectivity. The 2000s were about CRUD, create, read, update, delete, right? Just collecting information from people. That's what we did in the early 2000s. And then in the 2010s, we applied rules, a lot of if-then. We built crazy if-then rules, plus lots of integration like you described. And today we're talking about AI, but the point you make about data being siloed or platforms being siloed and then everything moves to the cloud is a huge challenge, especially for companies that are in the mid-market. How do you get the data that you might have had in these very siloed traditional client server environments into cloud environments? And then how do you ensure the integration and the privacy, confidentiality, and security of your data, and that the data can be used in the ways that we all want to talk about it when it comes to AI? And that's really what the challenges have been over the last 10 or 12 years is companies have accumulated enormous amounts of data, but is it data that can be reused in a way to drive revenue? Like, what are we going to learn from our customers and how they behaved? Or I think we've seen a lot of inefficiency because I have an accounting system that doesn't necessarily talk to my fulfillment platform, and my CRM platform isn't communicating carefully with my web-facing customer platform. And yeah, the promise of the cloud has delivered a lot of this, but there is a cost of that. And a lot of companies in the mid-market aren't ready to make that kind of investment to be like, well, I'm going to move entirely to Salesforce or entirely to some other big low-code platform. And so when I work with companies, a lot of the times it's really about hygiene. How do we take what you've built, your valuable data assets over the last 10, 15 years, and ensure that they can be used in the future to take advantage of upcoming innovations?
Yeah, yeah, and being having the experience of being the fractional CTO, you probably get a chance to network across multiple companies and help them kind of reach the end goal. Do you foresee like that being a better approach than having an in-house CTO?
I think it really depends on the type of company, the maturity of the company. I think for any company, and this happened to me a lot when I played chief technology officer roles. When I was a CTO at various companies, frequently a board would bring in a third party to evaluate the work that I was doing. And I always welcomed it because I have confidence in the work that I'm doing, and I believe that I'm delivering aligned with the goals. And so I always felt like if the board felt like they wanted to have a check to determine that they were making the right investments and I was delivering against their needs, that was fine with me. And so I think for any company, it's important to have some third party come in and evaluate talent, budget, and your velocity. And so to have a chief technology officer come in fractionally to just do those things, I think that's a good fit for any company at any maturity. But then, especially companies that are so focused tactically on delivering the day to day for revenue or for efficiency, really getting somebody to come in more strategically to say, you know, these are areas of opportunity for cost savings. These are areas for improved talent, for technology innovation. I think those are all areas that I have seen a fractional can come in and really make a big difference for a company and improve their overall velocity. And then the one thing I didn't mention is pain points, right? I have a lot of experience with projects that are in trouble, and how do you get them back on track? And so it's important to take advantage of people who I always say who have the scars, right? Who have done the work and had faced all the mistakes and then can help you get past it, reset your goals, and make sure you reach your objectives.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense. And then along with having this high level approach of like working with the leadership in the company, what does like a day to day look like for you? Like what motivates you? What drives you to say, hey, I wish I can resolve this one specific issue for a company.
Yeah.
What does the day to day look like for you?
Yeah, so I think a few different things. The reason I made this pivot was because while I had really great jobs over my career, I got further and further away from the technology. The more executive the role, there are different challenges and responsibilities you have, but frequently I'm further away from what I started doing, which was building custom software, which is what I love to do. And so, the perfect days for me are days where I get to work with an engineering team and evaluate their backlog and help them prioritize and find ways to incorporate innovative tools to reach their goals. Frequently, I'm doing strategy. So I work a lot with founders and co-founders who might not have a technical background. And so they need to get a sense of what their path forward is. What should their technology stack be? How should they invest in the talent they need to build it? What should be their path to MVP? How do they communicate their future phases? And then I do really like Project Rescue. I think it's a real opportunity to motivate teams and to reset organizations so that they feel good about what they're doing because I feel like there's such an impact to morale when projects are in trouble and they get so fatigued by the trouble that you can really help them see that they're making progress and just help them reset their goals. And so those are the things I really like to do with partners.
Right. Nice. That's amazing. I really like that you are able to like add a lot of very meaningful value to the
I
customers.
appreciate it.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit more about the current role? Like, what does the company actually provide to the customers?
Well, right now, I recently started this company, and so um, what I try to be is an advisor to help connect these companies with the right tools and talent they might need in order to reach their goals. And so oftentimes, I have partners who are expert at creating the right collaboration environments in the cloud. So there are a lot of small and mid-market companies that are still using disparate systems, and they really should move to virtual desktop, or they should really move to a cloud-based accounting platform. And so I have partners who help very specifically with that. And then when I work with startups who are building software, I generally include a partner that I've used over the years to help in the actual build. And if the tech stack is my choice, then I might think of it one way and one partner. If the tech stack is something that the startup has a sense of, I obviously take their input. And then, as you know, there are all these decisions about desktop and mobile, and how do we make those decisions? And so, I really try to be a trusted advisor for these partners to help them uh, achieve the goals they have with the best matched partner. Because as you know, we make lots of promises as consultants, as businesses, and I think everybody has the best intention, but not everybody can deliver the same results. And
Yeah.
so the goal is to introduce my partners to companies who have demonstrated histories delivering the results.
Yeah, that is extremely valuable. Like most people, especially on startups, they don't realize like this could be the difference between success and failure, right? Just
Totally.
the ability to actually execute and reach the end goal. That is many times that is everything for a business. And many
Yeah,
startups try to do it all by themselves, and they might try to develop something that might already exist, which is even
totally. Well,
yeah.
the thing that I really talk to startups especially about are two things. It's budget and revenue.
Yeah.
Because having a great idea is super important and innovation is incredibly important. But I really try to foster with founders their ability to communicate why their great idea can produce revenue.
Right.
And I have my own experience with this where we sometimes lose sight because we
Hmm.
think the idea is so great or the technology is so amazing that we don't do as good a job communicating what the revenue strategy is. So I'm a very revenue focused partner. And then I also think that budget is so critical to understanding the return on the investment. Are we making a proportionate investment to get the return that we're describing? And
Mhm.
these sound like easy things, and they are, but sometimes people get distracted,
Yeah, on a
by how great the idea is.
on a day-to-day basis, it's so easy to like just lose focusing. Hey, we are all focused on revenue. It might just need like a 5% change in something that might have a big impact, and we could just completely be blindsided by what we really need to do to make that big difference.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, coming back to you a little bit more of how you managed to reach the success and like in a little bit mix of like financially as well as from a career perspective. The definition of success varies for every person. For some people, it's financial success. Some people, it is lifestyles. For some people, it is family. But just from a career and financing perspective, how did you manage to like reach where you are? And if you have some advice on people that are getting in this industry and what they should be doing?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it's the right question. And the way you frame it is exactly right. You know, it's a choice that people should make, and they should be intentional about the choice they're making. I think um, if your passion is being a software engineer, then you should commit to that. You don't have to move up. You can make a career being an individual contributor, and you can understand what your financial goals are. And if you can meet your financial goals that way, I think that's important. I think people sometimes believe there's a right way to do it. I should be a software engineer, and then I should be a director of engineering, or a head of engineering, and then maybe a CTO. And in my own experience, as I described earlier, I've had, very lucky to have big jobs and do cool roles. But I did find myself moving away from what I really liked, which is being as close to the delivery as possible. And yeah, I've been very fortunate to have, good financial rewards. Um, but I don't think I was intentional enough about it to make sure that I was making the right decisions um, along the way. Meaning, maybe I could have tried other industries or spent more time um, becoming more expert, as a head of engineering rather than sort of jumping to chief technology officer. And so I think work-life balance is super important, and again, not just saying the words, but we were talking earlier before we started about living in New York or living
Yeah.
in Silicon Valley. We feel real pressures in these geographies to work a certain way. I've also had the good fortune to work in Colorado, where people have a different sense of work-life balance. And I think investing in yourself, in the thing that you believe you are best at,
Mhm.
and seeing what that path delivers for you is the first thing. And then
Yeah.
as you get opportunities, talk to your partner or your parents or your siblings or your mentors or your coaches when you have these opportunities to learn from them what they mean. Because I've met a lot of people who, when they jump from individual contributor to manager, they it's not that they regret it, but sometimes they have some nostalgia for having been an individual contributor. And sometimes they describe the headaches of management, and they're not sure they made the right decision.
Yeah, and it just so much comes down to the mindset, personality, and a very good exceptional individual contributor might struggle a lot being a manager, and they're
Totally.
like, why can't the team just do something this simple? And that's I've seen that just so many times where a manager and or a senior manager is sitting and like taking on the responsibility of doing everything themselves, uh, and just not being able to like get the team to do what needs to be done to as
Yeah,
collaborative way.
that's true.
So, uh, coming to like more from a financial perspective, another thing that I just thought about when you were mentioning is uh, a lot of people like don't even create a plan for themselves.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, being in the tech industry, like we automatically think everything works in a very similar way. Everything is supposed to take a lot of effort, and then there is a big return in the end, right? That's how tech in general works. Like there is 6 months of development, and once things go live, it just actually keeps running for a few years with just operations. And we take that same approach to finances and our investments, which may be very, very, very scary, right? Many times the financing works in a slightly different way where you should be consistent, slow, steady, and
Yeah.
keep using risk versus like many people from tech end up taking that same approach and think they will keep investing in like 20 startups and one of them is going to be amazing, right? And it's going to be a
Yeah.
in their account someday.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that we all hope to be part of a unicorn,
Yeah.
right? Um, I am a big believer and coach a lot of people when they're evaluating different opportunities. Stability is important. I've been lucky. I've worked at some stable companies and in other cases, not so stable companies. And I think you have to think about your earnings over a lifetime, not over the next 3 years, and really plan conservatively on what your earnings could be if you don't, you're not a stock optionaire, right? Like, what if the stock options you get don't ever become anything, or the company doesn't become worth $1 billion? Then, how have you been managing your finances to ensure whatever your lifestyle is that you can maintain it? And that depends on your family choices and all of these different inputs. But I really believe strongly that, you know, thinking about what your work-life balance is, what the stability of the role is, that the work you're doing you enjoy working with the people, because there aren't as many examples of people who really, strike it big. A lot of people, we're going to just work hard our whole career and hopefully contribute to our 401k and make investments over time, and maybe have a couple of years which are better. But I think that the promise of just hitting it big, I don't think is a way to make a plan. I think
Yeah.
planning your career on your expertise being the way you create value, not the expectation of a company, but what you can do and what you can control. And that's how you should plan your finances.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That is so true. And I think it's very important to split your work from your finances, and always always do something that you enjoy doing, right? Like that is the
Yeah,
most
I agree.
valuable thing. Like if you end up doing something that's uh not natural to you, then it doesn't really end up succeeding in the long run.
I
So
agree.
enjoy life, don't get stressed about stuff, and success is
Yeah.
going to follow you. Yeah, so what's the any other piece of advice or recommendations that you would like to share with the audience?
I think I've always tried to find roles that push my expertise, and I think that's one way of thinking about your career and career planning. Um, Sometimes you might have to take a sideways move salary wise, but you may be improving your tool set. And I think that's an important thing to consider when you're thinking about your career. And then always being able to demonstrate that your commitment to learning is key. Having a strong technical foundation will allow you to absorb the innovations that come. So you may
Mhm.
see yourself as a certain kind of software engineer today, but make sure you're keeping your eye on what's happening so that when innovative changes happen, you can say, my fundamental technology understanding allows me to make this pivot to help you with this new technology.
Yeah, that's so valuable. Yeah, and just before we wrap up, like how do people reach you, and who are the ideal people that you would be open to communicating? Like who should reach out to you, and how should they reach out to you?
Yeah, so I especially like to work with startups. Usually I work with startups that are either angel or pre-series A. And so your audience, if they're in that situation and they need guidance, I've helped companies with their tech strategy, their delivery strategy, their fundraising approach. And you can reach me at architectero.com, and my email is mk@architectero.com.
Cool. I'll include that in the links down below. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for joining on a busy day, taking time off from a very busy, hectic schedule, and coming on the podcast.
You bet. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
That's a wrap on today's episode of Main Street Minds. Want to share your journey with our audience? Head over to mainstreetmindspodcast.com/guest to apply.